So when you have shame in your life, you'll never really have freedom. I mean, you'll never really feel empowered. You can't feel empowered and have shame at the same time.
Hey everybody, welcome back to The Pursuit. I'm Jeff, this is John, and today's episode is being brought to you by one of our new partners, Cornerstone Payment Systems. And the thing about it is that they're a merchant service provider. As a matter of fact, if you go on thepursuitonline.com, they provide all of our credit card processing, and they can do the same for you, your business, your nonprofit, whatever you might have. These guys do an amazing job. And if you want to contact them, you can reach out and look at them on the web, of course, on Cornerstone. .com, but also at 888-506-0208. Give them a call. Nick and his team will take great care of you. Great Christian brothers and sisters that work down there. An amazing company. So make sure you check them out.
Let me add something to that. If you tell them you heard about it here, get $100.
$100. Smooth
sign
hundo.
Up bonus.
Wow. Benjamins. Floating the Benjamins.
Floating
Making it rain.
Just making them rain. So who you're hearing from today is our guest, a new friend of ours. His name's Kirk Samuels. Let me introduce Kirk to you. Kirk M. Samuels. He calls himself the Intimacy Incubator. I have no idea what that is.
Wow, I like that.
But hopefully we're going to find out more about that here in a second. He's also an award-winning member of the Toastmasters International. He's a radio personality on the Corner Café and the Real Traci Rock Radio Show.
I got to ask you a question about that. Do you actually have to, as a final exam for the Toastmasters, you have to get up and actually do a toast and they grade you and all that? They held up 8, 7, 9, 10, like the NBA dunk contest or something? How does that work?
It's funny. They do have competitions and stuff, but there's kind of different levels. It's kind of like, you go for your black belt kind of thing. There's different belts you can get, kind of same way with Toastmasters, different levels of certification and certificates and papers and all that kind of stuff.
There's a lot of people that are scared to death of speaking in public. And was that true for you, Kirk? Were you a guy that struggled with that? No. Something tells me that was not the case for you.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the case for me. I just wanted to be better.
There you go.
So I had this real quick conversation with my second oldest daughter, who's going to be the maid of honor, and her best friend from when they were 5 years old wedding, okay? And I sprung this on her. She didn't realize that she's going to have to give a speech. I said, no, you got to. She's all, no, I'm not doing that. I said, no, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
That's part of the, man, you're
going to Toastmasters.
Yeah. So now I know where to send her. She's got like 6 months to prepare, so I'll tell her.
This has turned into the longest guest introduction we've ever had, but that's okay.
Fun.
That was a great show. Good night, everybody.
So thank you for joining us. We'll have Kirk next time on The Pursuit. No, Kirk is also a columnist, believe it or not. He writes for the Colorado Luxury Magazine, and he also wrote a book. And that's where we're going to be spending most of our time today. The title of that book is For Your Eyes Only, the inside scoop about men, porn, and marriage. And it reveals to women how their man can become addicted to her. What a great title, what a great subject for couples and marriages.
Well, now you know why we had to go with a light introduction.
Exactly.
Because we're about to get into the meat.
But you know what? That's what this is about. That's what The Pursuit is about. We're on the relentless pursuit of truth and transformation. And it's a guy like Kirk that exemplifies that very statement. This is a guy, Kirk, you've got a tough story. And we're going to ask you to share a little bit of that with our listeners today. But the great thing about this thing that we're going to focus in on is the light at the end of this tunnel. So Kirk, if you just dive in, first of all, welcome to The Pursuit, my man. Thank you for joining us. But let's just dive in. Share with us a little bit of your journey and the story that's brought to you to this point.
Wow, I was born the son of a sharecropper. No, I'm kidding. Like, really? Is that a thing?
How old are you?
I was born and raised in the D.C. area, Washington, D.C. area. My father was a Vietnam vet. My mom worked for the phone company, and I think my dad, when he was in Vietnam, he was 17, and I think he came back 18, 100% disabled. And when he came back, he also had a raging drug and alcohol addiction. And so I grew up kind of, and he was actually in and out of a mental hospital my whole life. And so I kind of grew up with, when he was there was a lot of chaos, a lot of abuse, and a lot of different things. And then when he wasn't there, he was gone. So, single mom kind of scenario. And so that was kind of the environment I grew up in. And DC at the time was the murder capital of the world. And so, somehow God protected me from all of that, in terms of getting caught up in the drug game and that sort of thing. And probably the most significant change in course of my life happened when I was at 9. I was introduced to pornography for the very first time by some friends in the neighborhood. Back then, it was a VHS tape. I know y'all are young. You have no idea what a VHS tape was. You guys have no clue what VHS is. But my friends in the neighborhood brought over a tape and put it in. And back then I was a latchkey kid. And so, there was nobody home after school. And I still remember that first video. And I remember the name of it. I remember the scenes of it. And that was at 9. And for the next 30 years of my life, I was addicted to that. Like I couldn't get enough of that in any kind of way. And that ruled and controlled my life. Obviously at the time I didn't have, when I was really young, I didn't have access to a lot. But it was always something that I would choose to borrow from friends or whatever and get magazines and that sort of thing. Then as I got older and got more access, my addiction just kind of went deeper. I graduated college, got a commission in the military. I was in the Coast Guard, and my dream was to become a helicopter pilot. And I got a couple weeks away from becoming a helicopter pilot when that addiction not only ended that dream, but ended my career as a Coast Guard officer. Ended up moving to Denver here after I got out of the Coast Guard. And one marriage ended. I thought, okay, I'll just move on and everything will be great. Got married again. The problem never went away. It got worse. That marriage ended. And at the end of that marriage, I found myself what I called my rock bottom, was sleeping in the back of my car. And I began to contemplate and to plan out ending my life because of the effects of pornography and the addiction and the results. I was like, man, if this is life, I don't want anything to do with it. This is eating me up my entire life. My father actually passed away when I was 23. So he passed away right after I graduated college. I was that far from, probably that far, 3.5 inches, the barrel of a gun away from ending my life because of what this had done to me in my life. And at that moment, I call it my rock bottom because I had, the proverbial God moment where I told God, either God, you hate me and you never want me to get free of this, or you're going to wake me up tomorrow and you're going to show me how to get free of this. I knew what my problem was. I knew why it was a problem, but I didn't know how to get rid of the problem. And so I needed the how. I'm a guy, right? I needed the how. And so God began to show me, and he began to show me how to get out. I kind of put together a score system, and I ended up teaching that. I ended up coming up with a formula for teaching that score system to other guys and showing them the way out of pornography addiction. That led to my book, that led to speaking, that led to everything else that I do now.
So Kirk, before we get to kind of the approach to solving the issue that I know there's going to be a lot of note taking, trust me, as people listen to this. But as we were preparing for this interview, I thought about, there's this quote that I read one time that says, sin will take you farther than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay, and cost you more than you want to pay. As as this thing was sort of escalating from age 9, as you said, all the way into your military career, did you have moments of clarity where you realized, man, this could lead to that? Or was it, did you even think that, did you think you had it under control, is I guess what I'm trying to ask you?
I never thought I had it under control. As a matter of fact, I was pretty clear that it controlled me. I could never get enough. There was no such thing as enough. Now, I happened to never venture down the path of some illegal types of surfing and that kind of stuff. I never got into child porn or nothing like that. But I pretty much found my niche, and man, it completely controlled me. I was in heavy denial in terms of thinking that that I was the only one and nobody else knew, and I could just kind of, I could look the other way in my life and just kind of have this for the rest of my life, and that there was no collateral damage. There's significant collateral damage. The irony is that, the consumption of pornography is free, but pornography always costs you something. I mean, it's the only free and unlimited drug ever in history, let alone, in America. It's free and unlimited. The only barrier to access is your ability to get to the internet. And we all have smartphones that can do that. And so it's free and unlimited, and it is a drug. And so I was able to hide it, didn't leave any smell or anything like that. So I was able to suppress it in terms of what I thought people knew. And I was, everybody liked me. I was the greatest guy. I was, funny. I was serving at church. I was doing all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I was never under the presumption that I had, or that it had me. I was pretty clear that I had it. I was pretty clear that it had me.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely one of the dangers of this particular sin is it is so easy to conceal for the most part. And so talk a little bit about the struggle as it relates to your faith walk. And you kind of had these two lives, right, that you were leading. Talk about that internal struggle that was happening.
The greatest tool of particularly the devil of pornography is the shame that exists in the silence and in the shadows. And it's something that we don't really talk about hardly ever. You could, if you ever want to laugh, when you're in a restaurant or some crowded space, say the word pornography and see how many people turn in and look. I mean, it's kind of one of our last taboos. And so part of that is the shame that's associated with it, right? And so when you have shame in your life, you'll never really have freedom. I mean, you'll never really feel empowered. You can't feel empowered and have shame at the same time. And so from a man perspective, when I lived a faith walk with a deep level of shame, I was able to perform. I was able to do and say all the right things, and I was able to be that guy on the surface, but I had no power in my life because I was a mile wide, but an inch deep. Mm-hmm. And so when any kind of storms came through, because I was an inch deep, everything got blown out, and I wasn't able to persevere. I wasn't able to stand up for what I believe. I wasn't able to know God truly because of the shame. And so my faith walk was always kind of really tepid. I mean, it was really lukewarm because I was just putting on a front. I mean, that's really what it came down to my perspective. When I looked in the mirror, I was like, man, you're a fake, man. Look at you. I mean, and all that was the enemy, that enemy that was in me. And a lot of that, a lot of the fuel to that fire was shame. And so I was walking a constant balancing act between my shame and my faith. Everything that my faith said I was supposed to have, my shame said I can't have.
And that's the thing about sin, man, is it's a relationship killer. Sin is a relationship killer. At the root of sin, what's the purpose of it? It's to kill relationship.
Separate.
It's to separate. Not just, obviously, the obvious is separating God from man and the sin that exists there, but it's also, the enemy's wise, right? He's a serpent. And he uses it to separate relationships, between friends, between husband and wife, between, whoever that might be.
If he can isolate you, how easy are you in terms of prey?
It damages relationship, right? Yeah. The more we become isolated, the more it damages relationship. And gosh, when we talk about that iron sharpening iron and being in relationship with one another and being in that covenant relationship, whether it's with your wife, whether it's with another man that you're pursuing Christ together and you're trying to understand and walk through it together, it's so vitally important, man, because it's so, like you said, Kirk, it's so easy to conceal this one. So easy to conceal this one.
And at the core, the definition of sin is to fall short, right? So we've all sinned, and so we've all fallen short. That's biblical. That's scriptural. And so when we live, but at the same time we grapple that with there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ, right? So how do we walk that line? And when I come in contact with a guy or when I meet with a guy, we can't measure our freedom. We can't measure our relationship with God at all by, how much sin I have in my life, that can't be the foundation, because the fact is everywhere that I fall short, he makes up the difference. Mm-hmm. And we can't sin too much that God doesn't love us. We can't, that's the danger of grace. That's why grace is such a a dangerous concept, man. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not I'm not saying there's not a standard that we should be living up to, and I'm not saying it's okay. But what I'm saying is, to your point, it's one of those things that it does separate us, and it does break down our ability to relate, our ability to connect. And at its core, pornography is always going to stunt your ability to be intimate with whomever, God, with other people, with your brothers, with your spouses, whatever. And so that's the core of the intimacy incubator thing, by the way.
Thank you for that. See, we got our answer on that. But I want to go back and highlight a point that Kirk made that I want everybody to grasp this. There is no sin that we can commit that makes our Father loves us any less. I want you to just, if you get nothing more out of this podcast today, if you're listening or watching, it's that fact that there's no sin that we can commit that makes God love us any less. And here's the thing that's about grace, is when we sin, it pulls us away out of a relationship with the Father. He's not leaving us, but when we sin, it pulls us away from Him. What grace does, it's the gap in between that pulls us back to Him as we repent, right? That's what I want us to grasp that today, because Kirk's story is tragic. We all have tragedy in our lives and in stories of where we've fallen short. And the thing I want us to hear, though, it's the grace that pulls us back into relationship. That's what's so beautiful about the Father. So let's begin to shift, and let's begin to talk a little bit about Kirk, about some of these answers, because my guess is during that journey, until you finally got to that point where you began to get on that road of healing, there was probably a lot of things you tried. There was probably a lot of systems you tried to put in place that would only fail. Talk about that journey. What did you discover about yourself in that process?
Yeah, I discovered that I can't just quit. Like, everyone, I feel like the common message that was given to me in that area was, you should just stop. Like, man, you should just stop. Like, why can't you stop? You're just not praying hard enough. You're just not Christian enough. You're just not believing in God enough. You're not whatever. You're not enough is what I was hearing over and over again. And so the message that I felt like I was getting was, you should just be able to stop. And I realized that I couldn't just stop on my own. And I'll take it a step further and say I couldn't pray my way out of it. I mean, some things, faith, but faith without works is dead, right? So I had to put some action to my faith, and I had to, prayer is absolutely a part of it, and my faith journey is absolutely a part of it. But initially, I spent 30 years just trying to stop, just trying to go cold turkey. Man, if I could just squeeze that steering wheel hard enough, man, and just white knuckle this thing, then man, I can just get through it. And yeah, right. I mean, that doesn't work. I mean, especially with free, unlimited internet, I mean, you can't get away from it. I mean, it's one of those things that it's always there. I mean, can you imagine if Jack Daniels was free and unlimited? Would there be a problem? Yeah, there's a problem in it. You got to pay for it. Can you imagine if food was free and unlimited? Would we have an obesity problem? We have an obesity problem, and you got to go get food. So this was free and unlimited, and man, I just couldn't get free from it. And so in terms of the pivot, the shift, I realized that this was a holistic problem, that this was affecting my mind, my body, and my spirit. In every way, it was a battle. I was 55 pounds heavier back then than I am now. And I never tried to lose weight. I mean, I was sitting on a couch, eating flaming hot Cheetos and watching reality TV. I mean, the world, if we just submit to the world, it'll have us fat, dumb, and lazy, right? And so I realized I needed a holistic shift. I needed a way to empower my mind, my body, and my spirit, and bring all of that together, the physiology, the neurology and psychology, and the theology. And I call that freeology, because I want to be free, man. It's all about freedom, right? Freedom is dope. Freedom is the best drug out there. I don't care what nobody say, man. Freedom is Galatians 5:1. It is for freedom that Christ set us free, right? Stand firm and don't let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. I mean, it is for freedom. I mean, I got a 4-foot Braveheart sword hanging on my wall because I'm all about freedom. And so I put a score system in place of how do I gamify my journey out of pornography? How do I put a score in place that every day I know if I'm winning, I'm losing, and by how much? Because as guys, when you walk into the room and there's a game on TV, the first thing we ask is, what's the score? Because we like to know who's winning, who's losing, and by how much. And so in this journey out of pornography, I wanted to know, am I winning today? Am I losing? And by how much? And so I put a score system around that to know my score on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, and so on and so forth. And then I focus on what I want to do, not what I don't want to do. I focus on where I want to go, not where I don't want to go. My freedom, not my sin.
Kirk, that's amazing. And as I'm thinking about, and I was driving down here thinking about this thing about our relentless pursuit of truth and transformation. And I realized that to pursue truth is important, but to expose and stop chasing the lie is equally important. There's a lot of people out there, and quite frankly, if you're a man walking this earth, the chances are that you have had some struggle with this in your life, okay, to some degree or the other. We're all in this boat together. What is the lie? What is the compulsion? What are we buying into that you want to just expose for what it is? Because what I hear you saying is, man, the freedom of the truth is so much better. Tell them what the lie is.
The lie is, first of all, the lie presents itself as I'm the only one. I mean, that's the daily lie. I'm the only one that struggles like this. I'm the only guy. I'm the only guy. And nothing could be further from the truth, man. I mean, first of all, 6 out of 10 divorces involve somebody with a porn problem. Half of Christian homes, in several different surveys say there's some kind of a pornography problem in the home. So the lie presents itself like I'm the only one. And then on a deeper level beneath that, and right along with that, but beneath that, the lie persists and it says that I'm alone, that I am isolated and that I'm cut off and in every way. And I'm unlovable and I'm not worthy and I'm not worth it. And there's no hope and there's no chance. And all of that are lies from the pit of hell, man. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth in terms of, A, you're not alone. First of all, you're not the only one. I mean, at any moment, 40 million Americans are consuming pornography. A couple of years ago, in 2016 alone, on one website, there was 4.6 billion hours of pornography consumed on one website. I mean, you do the math on 4.6 billion hours, that's like thousands of lifetimes in one website in 1 year. So nobody's alone in terms of the consumption. But then deeper than that, man, the lie of I'm not good enough and I'm unlovable and I'm isolated and cut off, man, that's straight doo-doo, man, if I can be for real. I mean, that is, like I said, that's a lie from the absolute pits of hell, man. But that's the way it feels when you're in it, when you're in the fishbowl. Because it's one thing for people, what I also felt, like people, like I was in a fishbowl and people around me would look into the fishbowl and they would kind of describe my life and describe and understand what it's like and all that kind of stuff. When, for me, when you ask the fish, how's the water? The fish says, what water? Because the fish doesn't even know that there's water. And when the thermostat goes out, the fish, is burning to death or boiling or freezing to death. And you on the outside of the fish tank have no clue. And so I didn't feel like, and this is the crux of where the book came from, I didn't feel like anybody understood what it was really, really like to be in this fishbowl. And so in the book, I described what it's like being in the fishbowl more than I talk about the solution, because in all of your getting, you should get understanding. And the wisest man ever said that.
Mm. If we can connect the lie and our kind of buying into this lie and looking for the counter or looking for the solution, but finding the counterfeit in the lie, and realize that really what we're robbing is the world of ourselves, of our free self walking in purpose. And what keeps echoing in my head is the Bible says that our call is without repentance. In other words, talk to the guys out there, Kirk, about the fact that they can still be redeemed no matter how deep they're in this lifestyle, that there's purpose out there waiting for them to wake up and to chase it.
Here's the deal. If you ain't dead, it ain't too late, right? I mean, period. If you're listening to this right now on this side of heaven, it ain't too late. I don't care if you're going to die next week. You got 6 days of freedom that you could have, right? And so, it is never, ever, ever too late. And besides that, I'll tell you what's on the other side of the coin. The other side of the coin is a sense of walking out of the door feeling free, man, feeling on purpose, in purpose, on purpose, with purpose. Slight tangent here, but we as guys, we're guys. When an embryo is formed, it's a female, right? I mean, it's two X chromosomes. But But for us as men, one of those chromosomes flips to an X or to a Y, I'm sorry, and we become an X and a Y chromosome. We are men because of our Y. We are men because of our why. And if you're a man, you have a why. And if you're not living or haven't lived that why yet, then you haven't come into your full destiny, your full purpose, your full calling. And that why is waiting for you. That why is begging you. That why is what the real prize is. That, man, when you're able to connect, when you're able to live in intimacy and fellowship and harmony, and when you're able to live free, I mean, but there's nothing better than that, man. So whoever you are, guy, trust me, there's something on the other side of the coin. There's something on the other side of that finish line. And B, man, it ain't ever too late, man. It ain't ever too late as long as you're still alive, man.
Kirk, we're going to have to wrap up today. And this has been amazing. It goes by so fast.
By the way, I'm stealing that line. When you find you are a man because of your why. I love that. I'm still. I wrote it down. It's
so good, man. That belongs to heaven, man. That belongs to you. Pay God royalties on that.
And there's nothing more powerful than the why. There's nothing more motivating than the why. And for that young man or woman that's out there watching, that is battling with this particular addiction, man, I would encourage you to press in, to understand your why, understand your purpose. Because let me tell you something, don't buy into the lie of the world that tells you your purpose is wrapped up in your job. Don't buy into the lie that your purpose is wrapped up in building wealth or any of these other things that the world wants to sell to you. There is a divine purpose that God intended for every single one of us. He predestined things to happen that only you could carry out. And here's the deal. Here's the amazing thing about predestination. Predestination doesn't mean it's going to be guaranteed to happen. Predestination means it's been set aside. God has predestined for you to carry it out. The question is, are you and I going to choose to walk in obedience? Are you and I going to grasp on to understand what our true why is? And that's really, at the end of the day, when Kirk talks about freedom, that's what he's referring to. Freedom to carry out the why that God predestined for each of us to carry out. Because I tell you, if we understand that and we grasp that and we walk in that, we will find not just freedom, but we'll find great power, authority, understanding, wisdom. The things that are going to come forth, it's the fruits of the Spirit. John, you and I have talked about it a lot. What Jesus prayed, and what did he say to his Father? He said, my desire is that the things of heaven be manifest on earth. And here's the cool thing. For whatever reason, we've talked about this a lot on this show, is that for whatever reason, God chooses to use you and I as conduits for the things of heaven to be manifest on earth. And that's really the why. I'm telling you, if you want to see joy that surpasses all understanding, if you want to see kindness and goodness and self-control, if you want to see healing, if you want to see people raised from the dead, if you want to see the blind people regain their sight and the deaf once again begin to hear, all he's saying is position yourself. That's your why. Position yourself as my conduit. And the things of heaven will be manifest on earth. And there's nothing greater, when you taste it, there's no pornography, there's no drug, there's no other vice that exists out there today that can even come close to what it tastes like when we learn what it means to walk in our why. Any closing thoughts for us, Kirk? Anything you want to say to that young man or woman that's out there that's watching this show today?
Man, I'm looking over your heads and I see the words the pursuit, man. And I mean, first of all, you guys are dope for just stepping out on the edge and just following that calling, man. And I respect you and I appreciate, the warriors that you all are on the battlefield, man. And that thing that we're pursuing, man, the world needs us right now, man. The world needs men that are living in purpose, that are living in calling and living in the things that God has set aside for us, man. And so I appreciate you all, man. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate your calling and man, I appreciate the pursuit that we can have together, man, for everything that God has for us and the freedom and the purpose and everything that we're talking about wrapped up all in a ball for us, man. I appreciate you guys, man.
Well, and together is one of the key words in what you just said as well, because we look forward, Kirk, to having you back on and to your many, many contributions. Like we were talking about before the show, I really feel like this, you just laid the foundation by telling your story and really earned the right now to be heard around some of these very, very key points that we're going to drive into over the next weeks, months, and quite frankly, years. So we look forward to having you back on to explore those.
So if I could pull your 4-foot sword off the wall right now, I would dub you a knight of the pursuit. You're now a part of the team, my man. Whether you want to or not.
Nice.
So we're now going to call you Sir Samuels.
Captain Kirk.
We're going to call him Captain Kirk. That's what we got.
Nice. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That sounds good, man.
Hey, buddy, thanks again for joining us. Hey, everyone else, thank you for joining us again on The Pursuit. I hope you were blessed by today's message and our guest today. Make sure you go online, thepursuitonline.com. Check us out. There's all kinds of blogs and various information you can see on there. And see today's presenting sponsor, Cornerstone. If you choose to want to donate to The Pursuit, it is a tax deduction, 100% tax deductible. So we would love your support to continue this message going forth. Anything else you want to add?
Shout out to Kirk, man. Thank you so much for exposing the lie today, and we're excited to have you on board with this relentless pursuit of truth and transformation.
We're out. We'll see you next time.
See you.